Meet Molly. Today is Molly's first day of 4th grade. Usually Molly is excited to go to school, but today is different. That's because Molly is starting a new program at school. That's what she's been told. You see, Molly has heard for years that she is different than the other kids her age. She has listened to her parents, her teachers, and her doctors talk about her, but she has never really understood what it all meant. She learns differently than the other kids at school. Sometimes she plays differently too. But what does that mean? Does it mean that something is wrong with her? With all of the adults talking about it, sometimes it makes her feel like there is. Molly's noticed how the other kids used to act around her in school before this year. Sometimes they didn't treat her any differently, and Molly didn't think twice about her differences. But other times, when she takes longer to answer a question in class, or when she has to get up and walk around in the back of the classroom in order to concentrate, the other kids would stare at her, and it made her feel different, in a bad way. Sometimes it made her feel not as good, not as capable, and not as smart as the other kids in her class. Molly's parents know that their daughter has always been viewed as different. Ever since Molly was a baby, they've been bombarded with different tools and strategies in order to make Molly more normal relative to the other children. Once Molly started school, she was immediately slapped with the label of learning disabled, a label that problematizes and marginalizes her. They've been told that Molly should be separated from the regular classes and sometimes even from the regular school. But Molly's parents were always conflicted because who gets to decide whether their daughter is regular or not? Over the years, Molly's parents have tried not to treat their daughter any differently, but sometimes they worry that because of the institutionalized structure, tracking, and testing from the school system, that their daughter won't succeed in school or won't fit in with their peers. So sometimes they have caught themselves holding her back from certain things in order to protect her. They have even found themselves conforming to the societal systems of separating the normal from the abnormal, because if they refuse to consent to the labels placed on their daughter, she won't receive the services that might help her to succeed in the world. They ask, what is worse? Molly's IEP was reevaluated this year, and some components of it were tweaked in order for Molly to receive a free and appropriate public education. While Molly's parents understand that schools aren't required to meet a child's maximum potential, they try and fight for certain opportunities to meet her needs more effectively, such as assistive technological support and occasional one-on-one support. The IEP meeting, just like the others in the past, frustrated Molly's parents. While education laws, specifically the amendments to IDEA in 1997, mandate increased parental participation throughout the process, Molly's parents often feel rushed and isolated by all of the special education jargon used by the school administrators. They can't imagine what this is like for parents who don't fully understand what their rights are. Sometimes they don't feel like their daughter is represented as a human during this process, but rather categorized by statistics and quantitative data. The resulting document, Molly's IEP, appears as a very clinical summary of Molly's educational struggles, goals, progress, and recommendations. Molly's parents are always sure to bring a picture of Molly when they attend these meetings in order to constantly remind everyone the reason for why they are there, to help Molly, a person, not a statistic, succeed in school. They often wonder if this is the most effective way for their child to receive a high-quality education at such a large school. Many students attend Molly's school every year. In order to meet test scores, receive funding, and increase graduation rates, the school tends to feel like it's a factory line. Students are organized by age group, subject, and achievement, and while students have different needs, the school believes that the students must be sorted and labeled in order to provide equal and quality education for all of the students. The school, the families, and the students have all conformed to society's expectations of individual capabilities, racism, ableism, and unquestioned or unanswered assumptions. And rather than preserving confidence in all students, whether or not they identify with having a disability, construction of disability focuses on identifying within-child deficits. Additionally, because historical construction of difference has made institutionalized racism, classism, and sexism seem natural in conflation with disability, there is a disproportionality of minority students in lower tracks and in special education at Molly's school. However, Molly's teachers realize that they need to reframe their practices rather than finding fault in the children who are labeled with these deficiencies. They understand that it is essential to presume competence, promote student agency, learn about how each student experiences his or her environment, and question the constructed idea of normal when it comes to the education of their students with disabilities, as for all their students. But when they have so many students who differ in the ways they function and learn, how can they personalize their teaching to each student in order to create the highest level of learning in their classroom? While oftentimes teachers feel pressure to standardize their curriculum, they may not realize that it is possible to design curriculum to be inclusive from the beginning. They don't need to adapt or modify afterwards, but rather think from the beginning, how am I going to present a lesson in a variety of modalities? How am I going to keep my students engaged in a variety of modalities? And how am I going to assess my students in a variety of modalities? This is called Universal Design for Learning, a framework that Molly's teachers use in their inclusive classroom. With the teamwork of Molly's parents, Molly's teachers, and Molly herself, Molly's prepared to take on the 4th grade. But before she goes to school today, Molly's mother reassures her of how optimistic they all are that this year will be great for Molly, and all she has to do is be herself. Stories like Molly's happen every day. While there is not a single path that all children take through education, it is important that new teachers understand the structural, emotional, and societal obstacles many students and families face on a daily basis. There are many questions left unanswered about equal education for all students, but developing a foundation of empathy and knowledge can help our students to work towards their highest potential inside and outside of the classroom.